Hello, yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to our live stream this evening. We're just figuring out some technical difficulties with our guest, and yeah, so I'll um, try to fix the technical difficulties first. But feel free to let us know in the comments where you're watching from, um, and yeah, let us know your name then. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll be right back in a little bit. Thanks for your patience. Hello. So while we wait for our guest to log back in, um, I'll be sharing some things really quick. Oh, that's not it. Oops, wrong one. Hello, everybody. Let me just share with you what's going while we wait for our guests. Where is the thing? Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's my second time streaming. Last night was my first time. Yeah. So while we wait for our guests, let me share with you what we're doing tonight. Then, where did it go? Cool. So yeah. So to this, just a reminder for those who are joining us this evening. I started live streaming yesterday, and this is a series of live stream to help fundraise for um, typhoon relief in the Philippines. So if you can see, I'm part of NAFCON. For those who do not know, I'm part of the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns. I'm the national coordinator for culture and heritage, and we have this ongoing bayanihan response campaign to respond to the needs of our kababayans, our communities back in the Philippines, back in the motherland, who are experiencing difficulties this holiday season, especially during this typhoon season, where Typhoon Odette, a really bad typhoon that recently hit the Philippines just 5 days ago. So earlier today, just right before I started my live stream, I was at a meeting with NAFCON, with the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns, getting reports from our partners on the ground. So I'm just going to give you some numbers from the report that we got today. There's a total of 300,000, 376,000 and 719 people from the different regions of the Philippines that have been evacuated. There's an estimated of about 181,000 families or 706,000 individuals that have been affected by the typhoon in different barangays in the Philippines. And 488,000 people have been displaced because of this typhoon. And this is just a few numbers. Listening earlier to our partners on the ground in the Philippines, we learned a lot of the what's really going on on the ground, what's really going on that we don't really see on our news or social media. For example, in Surigao, there's no fuel, there's no water, there's no electricity. In a lot of these places, there's no electricity, there's no fuel to reach the different communities that need help. in a lot of these places too, according to the community members themselves, the people themselves that were affected by the typhoon, is that they haven't even seen their government in a lot of these areas. The government in the Philippines have yet to reach these areas, but luckily for some of them, we have partners on the ground with NAFCON who are already there. So our main partner on the ground with NAFCON is the CDRC, the Citizens Disasters Response Center that was founded in 1984, and they're really they've always been, their mission is to this disaster risk reduction instead of just with disaster relief. So their main focus is really working hard with the communities to their goal is to prevent disasters from happening as much as we can. And they're present in a lot of the regions in the Philippines. They have 16 regional centers in different provinces across the Philippines, and there are partners on the ground who are helping the communities. Um, yeah, according to the report that we got today from our partners on the ground, a lot of these communities have yet to see relief from the government themselves. But yeah, so it's a lot of work, and the estimated right now, from what we heard from the report earlier, they're estimating that they might not even have electricity back in the next 2 weeks. So it's really dire situation. And for those who are able to help, I have the link on scrolling down below if you can see it, to donate to NAFCON's Typhoon Odette response fundraiser at tinyurl.com/2021 typhoons. And I'm gonna check how much we've raised, because last night, for all who joined us, maraming salamat. We were able to raise during the live stream. We raised over $300 to that goes towards a lot of our kababayans back in the Philippines. Yeah, so let me find the most current numbers. Yeah, let me. Oh, nawala yung. Yeah, and I'm not sure if you can see the actual numbers. Let me scroll down. You can see it, right? So right now so far we have $5,384.09 that we have on the website. So as you donate throughout this evening and throughout this week, that number is going to go up. So this is the live count. So far we have 5% of our goal of raising $100,000 for the families affected by the typhoons in the Philippines. So maraming salamat to everyone who donated, and if you can, please donate um, today. Donate right now. So I'll just read off some of the shout outs that we have on the comment section. Nasa na siya? Ayan. So, shout out to this amazing rapper, ITM, who's currently based in the Philippines but from the Bay Area. So hello. Thanks for joining. Um, hey, hello then kay Juan Antonio, watching from the Philippines. Last man. From Camarines Sur in Bicol, we have France. Hello. Marhay Namudto. From Malaysia, we have, I'm not going to butcher how to say your name, but we have Mas Yuhada Masri. So, terima kasih for joining us all the way from Malaysia. And then Leo from Long Beach, California. Ryan from Batangas. Hello, Ryan. Shemrel from the Philippines. Hello. Um, Gambit from Qatar. Wow, all the way to the Middle East. Renz from Batangas. Okay, Jem from Taguig. Jam from Taguig. Jam from Chicago. Um, Alfredo from Quezon City in the Philippines. And from my hometown, we have Juan Antonio from Angeles City, where I was born. Hello, and okay, Aaron from Zamboanga del Norte. Wow. Yeah, and so shout out sa inyong lahat. Thank you for joining us. Um, let me let me just check on our guest speaker really quick. Ayan.
Hi.
Yay, I think it's working now.
Oh my gosh. How did you make that happen?
Bad. Sorry about that.
Oh my, I was just making faces here myself thinking I'll never go on live because it's been 20 minutes of trying. And then I see myself and it's like, oh, okay.
I think it worked.
And
I don't know what I did, but it started working. Yay!
yes,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
joining.
Yes, I am excited and honored and glad to be here and to be of help. I'm
Yeah.
I am calling in from the Patwin Winton
Hmm.
territory in Davis,
Yes.
California. So,
Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, I used to live in Patuin land before too. Thanks. Everybody, let's welcome our guest speaker for today. My special guest today, si Ate Justine Villanueva from Sawaga River Press, and I'll let her introduce herself some more. And yeah, let us know what you want to talk about.
I was hoping that it'll be just
Okay. Okay, so tell us. I guess we can start with telling us about yourself and the work that you do, because you do amazing work. For example, this two children's book that you published, and I'm waiting for the new one to come out. Yeah.
yes. So I do. That's my it's my passion project. My currently my side gig, as they say. But it's really my not so secret desire to really just do it full time and just run with it and be the thing that I do. But right now it is my side hustle. I am an attorney. I do bankruptcy law and do good work as far as obviously helping people out in that situation. But I started publishing when I first had my child back in. Whew, he's now 13 years old, so it's been a while, right?
Yeah. This one,
um,
the first one.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I did that when he was maybe 5 or 6 or 7, the mama. Yes.
Wow.
So it was just a personal project that I had, kind of wanting to,
Hmm.
commemorate the days that I was spending with my child.
Yeah.
And then along the way I learned the dire need for books that have Filipino American kids and stories. Yes.
That's your family in here.
Yes. Those are my two sons, and so yeah, it started out as a very personal project, and then that was going to be the end of it. But then my friends were like,
Mm.
"You can't not have a second one because you have two children. Your second child will be like, why didn't you make a book for me?"
That's funny.
So there has to be parity. And so
Yeah.
yes, and so we did the Jack and Ague, which Kirby here helped with,
Oh, wait. There we
and
go.
you have been key to the
Thank
making
you.
of this book, Kirby.
Thanks.
Uh,
You
yeah.
did all the work. I just helped.
No, well, the bye bye was a big part of it, so I don't know what we would have done without you.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's kind of a quick summary of what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're working on our third,
Mm.
and hopefully, it'll just be a thing that we do every
Hmm.
year. We come up with
Yeah.
a book at least. Wouldn't that be great? The money
Yes.
will just pour in.
Yeah, help our small businesses and creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the beauty of it is also celebrating our culture, our beautiful culture from the Philippines
Yes.
and in the diaspora. So the one thing I really love about your books is really, not just talking about the Philippines, but also the experiences of, people who are here but have roots in the Philippines and have the different experience. So maraming salamat for joining us.
Yes. Walang anuman.
Thank you. For people in the chat, feel free to ask us anything. Today, our main or overall topic for today are water deities and mythologies from the Philippines. So, yeah, so if you have any questions about this topic, yeah, so we'll just It'll just be more of a casual conversation talking about our different cultures in the Philippines. Yay!
I actually I looked at the. Sorry, I'm gonna reach
Go
really
ahead.
here. When you mentioned water myths and legends, um, I looked at this book that I have. Well, I have a few of these
Oh wow.
uh, these books, the Lola Basyang books,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, this was the one that I kind of looked at because a lot of these are like the legend of the many of the rivers in the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines, and
Yeah.
I think it begins with the legend of the Bohol Island,
So
the
from
girl who
Bohol,
comes
yeah.
from the sky, and it just made me think about how one of the things I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about was how like this specific one, for example, kind of has similar themes to the
Mm-hmm.
Sky Woman story, and the Turtle Island, and so
Yeah.
anyway, I,
That's so
have
cool.
you read this? Do you
Not
have
yet.
this book?
Yeah, I don't think I have a copy of it yet. I'll put it to my on my to buy list.
It's there. I'm always surprised because I always
Mhm.
think like, oh, I know most of these stories.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's like, oh,
There's
I've never
always
heard of
something that
that.
surprises us. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um. Anyway, and then I have this other one too. Oh, I used it as a stand for my laptop, so I can't move it. That was not smart. Anyway, I was just gonna show you the collection of the best Lola Basyang stories, which also
Okay.
have a bunch of legends.
Legends, yeah.
Very entertaining
Do you want to
stuff.
share what's your favorite from them?
For the one that
Mm,
was leaning, I was kind of actually thinking of maybe reading a little bit of it.
mm.
Was uh, sorry,
It's okay.
I might
Go ahead.
move here.
No
Oh,
worries.
no, that's the warrior dance. Oh, okay. So here's the one that I was gonna
Mhm.
um, read, sort of. I don't know, talk about. It's called "The Sky, the
Mm.
Sea, and the Bird of Prey," and how
Oh,
basically how the Philippines began. I won't read it, but basically the story is about how there's the sky and there's the sea and then
mm-hmm.
there's the bird, and the bird's tired of
Yeah,
like going up or down, and so the
yeah.
bird decides to start a fight between the sky and the sea, and then they do fight, and
Mm.
then in the process of fighting, they threw land, and then sky threw land, and then the sea
They
threw
fought.
water.
Yeah, they fought
Yeah, and
back.
then eventually they had the 7,000 plus islands,
Yeah,
and that's how the Philippines began. And I just
yeah.
thought that was really cool
Mhm.
because it feels so. Here's the one.
Oh,
Talking about
there
like
we go.
water related
Yeah.
stories. I don't know if you can see that well.
Let me.
That
Yeah.
looks
Let
like
me.
there's the bird, and then like the waves. Oh, okay. Hold on. The waves kind of just swirling up. Um, yeah. So where am I? Yeah. And then I think that's the only one. And then that's at the end was the island. So what I know we were talking about just um, focusing on the water, but I kind of also feel like it's really hard to focus just on the water. Like
Yeah.
you bring in water, you also bring in the sky and the stars and
Yeah.
the moon, all that stuff. So
That's
anyway,
cool too. Yeah, we can talk about anything you want to talk about.
that's so much harder.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for sharing those. There's a lot of the different stories that I've heard too, involving the water, the sky, and then how the islands came out after the water and the sky fought this battle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, thanks
Do
for
you
sharing. Hmm.
do
Go
you
ahead.
know where the one that I just read does
Mm-hmm.
not really specifically say
Mm-hmm.
this is, based in, it just says it's the Philippine Islands. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess it's a very general
Yeah.
story, but like most of the myths that I've read always
Mm.
like anchors itself to a specific place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is how the Bohol Island was formed,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever this
Yeah.
specific lake was formed. This one is just it's very broad, I feel like, and I was
Mm-hmm.
wondering if the stories that you've heard
Mm-hmm.
specifically anchor it to a specific place or no.
Yeah, so I've heard different stories. I've heard this from, if I'm not mistaken, Tagalog mythology before.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different versions of how the islands came to be. And
Mm-hmm.
that again, that's the beauty in the Philippines. There's a lot of like different cultures and traditions, and so
Right.
different. There's like a what do you call this? Like a treasure chest of a lot of different mythologies,
Mm-hmm.
talking about different things like the creation of the islands. I'll just share something from where I grew up in Pampanga. So one of the creation stories, or not creation stories necessarily, but how what the islands is in the Philippines, or the islands in pre-colonial Kapampangan oral traditions in mythology. The islands that we live in the Philippines are actually found on the back of a giant crocodile dragon.
Mm.
That is often known as Dapu or Indung Tibuan. Indung Tibuan literally means like the motherland or motherland that you grew up in, or where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that's really fascinating how our ancestors saw even the land itself as this water being.
Right,
So
right,
the
right.
spikes of the crocodile were the mountains and the islands in the Philippines. So that's just something I want to share. Um, yeah,
Oh, I like that.
yeah. Let me
You know,
set.
I
Go ahead. Go ahead. What were
oh
you gonna?
I know I was just gonna say because I grew up in
Mm,
Bukidnon.
mm-hmm.
We were up in the mountains. Um, the stories that I kind of remember as far as like where things came from and all that are almost always related to like the mountains, like
Yeah.
how Mount Kitanglad was born or was created. Um, so I actually don't know of a lot of water related
Mm-hmm.
myths. Um, and I keep thinking, oh, that's because we're up in the mountains. But I forget, like even up in the mountains, you have rivers, right? You have
Yes.
lakes and
Yeah.
rivers, and so it still is very much dependent on a lot of waterways and
Yeah.
water related um, places. So
Let me share a comment from Facebook from Jem. Jem said that I'm not sure if I'm off topic, but when I was a kid, I was hearing about this big golden fish they called Oro in Cagayan de Oro River, where it causes the earth to shake and it's hungry. So it's another mythology from Mindanao in Cagayan de Oro.
yeah.
Cool. So it's a big golden fish. Wow, that causes earthquake.
Or sometimes they say it's like the one that I remember
Mm,
is like a big crab that
yeah.
came out of like a volcano or something, and then
Mm,
it's a giant one, and then because it's so giant that it like causes the water to like this, not what's the word, just not dislodge, but
mm,
so then that's how like the seas and
mm,
the
mm.
water came about. But yes, Cagayan de Oro.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Anybody else who
Yeah.
wants to share in the chat on Facebook or on YouTube, I'll highlight it if you want to share. Or or if anyone, or if Justine wants to share another one after Justine, or anything that you want to share about your favorite mythologies from your childhood in the Philippines, or even now that you're learning, because a lot of these stories, like we learn it back then and then we forget about it, and we learn something new, and then we learn it
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, like I was saying, a lot of the stories I remember
Mm,
hearing were mountain related or
yeah.
um, but but I did grow up next to the Sawaga River. So the press
Yeah,
that I have, it's called Sawaga
that's the
River.
name of the publishing.
Yes. So I have a lot of good, mostly good memories of growing up next to the Sawaga River.
Mhm.
And so, but the thing that they always say is like, watch out, don't go there because there are
Yeah.
shokoy and there's like, there are like big giant carpas and they will eat you, if you go there because we love to go and like cut class
Hmm.
and then just go to the river and spend the afternoons there, jumping from boulder to boulder and,
Hmm.
whatever kids did. But yeah, I remember that that's like such a thing is like the shokoi will come and they
Hmm.
will like poke you with their, I guess, their trident.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool.
And those big giant man eating carpas,
Mm-hmm.
watch out for those too.
Those giant fish.
The giant fish, I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying. I'm thinking about it now.
Mhm.
This is kind of hazy in my memory, but I am thinking also of like how some of the stories. Maybe I shouldn't say this because I'm not sure if it's accurate or not. But
Go
I feel
ahead.
like I feel like part or some of the agyo, like the
Mhm.
epics, the Ulagian
Mhm.
epics,
Yeah, yeah.
include Agyo's adventure going down into the some underwater kingdom where there are like golden fish, golden carps.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I'm making that up now, so I should probably like not be like this is the story of Agyo. So I'll leave it at
Maybe.
that.
Yeah.
I'll
I'll
look
I'll
into
I'll
it a
let
little
you. Yeah,
more.
because it might be something that we can dig deeper too.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. There was a question on, I guess, regarding your book. They're asking if it's going to be available or is it available in the UK?
Um Right now, no. So most of the international or outside of U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Sales have been um, going to Canada
Mm-hmm.
and um, gosh, I'm trying to remember where else I have sent. So the if anybody is interested, I guess I could check
Mm-hmm.
if there's a way I could get the books to wherever they are.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work out as far as like finding a distributor, then it might just be like a personal mail. And then I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the cost is very prohibitive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just depends on how much you're willing to pay for the
Mm-hmm.
shipping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. For small creators and publishers like us, it's hard sometimes to to reach
Yeah,
to the outside the US.
yeah. I mean, I've done it before where I think I've
Mm.
sent several books to New Zealand or
Mm,
some
wow.
some other country, and I've just been like, I'm not gonna charge you for the book. I'll just send you the book as long as if you're willing to take on the shipping costs.
Yeah.
And and then I've had people take me up on that offer. But yeah, it is one of the so-called disadvantages of
Mm-mm.
going this way, going
Yeah.
small press way, and kind of going at it on our own. Because
Hmm. That's why we need to support more people like us, so we can expand more.
yeah, no, seriously, I'm always like, well, maybe there should be also more people
Hmm.
um, in those other countries doing this kind of work that we are doing here. So we're all
Yeah.
doing, right? Like we're all
Yeah.
doing the similar kind of work, but in different places.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah. So I hopefully that answered the question. So hopefully soon. um, Let me see if other we can have other. There's a lot of questions coming in or comments. Um, there's a comment. My favorite. is capre because hearing about them when you're young is scary, but hearing about capre when you're an adult seem more chill. And I love the Bigfoot parallel. So this is from Shinobi from on YouTube. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
um,
I love the capre too. In my because
mhm.
because it's mentioned. I'm gonna very quickly go to my little page here.
Yeah,
Sorry, my laptop is a little weird,
no
wonky,
worries.
so
It's okay.
I'm trying to hold it. So here, like I was gonna say, okay, I'm gonna just show a little bit. So I have, of course, I
Mhm.
have the shokoy and the sirena here, and um,
Yeah, I
the
see it.
Jack and Agnew books. I don't know if you can
Oh
see
yeah,
it.
let me find it in my
Um,
cup.
but the Capre. So I have this. This is my favorite book, and I've always wondered how kids like. Yeah, I've always wondered how kids like read this page because okay, well,
let
yes,
me let me full screen you.
yes, thank you. So this is the page where we're talking about um the community riding on the Salimbal, which is the flying ship that takes them away from the so-called bad guys. Well, the oppressors. And so I had like not just the extended family of Jack ride the Salimbal, but I also had these like supernatural creatures that we have, right? Like so I've got here um a little aswang, like a girl aswang, but very cute. And then the diwata, and then the tikbalang right there, and then the capre right there, the chill with his cigar. And I always wonder if like the kids like pick up on it and go like, why are there those kinds of? They're like, why are they there? But anyway, I hope that they do notice it, and that I hope that a conversation happens when they pick up on it, and that it's kind of an introduction to some of our well-loved supernatural creatures, and gets them interested in talking, or in at least reading about or finding out
Yeah,
more
reading, learning more. So it's a,
older.
so it's a good, even if deeper and learning more about um, these creatures. And I'm really happy that you put them all in one flying.
Uh-oh, I lost you. I lost your I can't hear you.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
there.
I
Yes.
accidentally turned off my mic.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm
You're
saying
saying you're happy I put them in the salimbal.
yes, yeah. It's so cool to see them all together.
Yeah, I
There
guess
were
my idea was like,
mhm,
you know, when we leave, we do bring them along with us wherever we go, right? Like we bring our
mhm,
culture and traditions and stories. We don't just leave
yeah,
them behind when we leave. So they make it to
yeah,
whatever place we go with us. So
yeah.
and
I
they're
have
also our kapwa in a sense, right? Like
yes,
we
yeah,
are related to them. So it's not
yeah.
just people kapwa, but
Hmm.
like just
Yes, that's true.
everything.
Yeah, there's a question from Mia Valeria. Did you draw the illustrations yourself? They look majestic. So you can share more about the artist.
No, I wish I could draw like Lenore. So our illustrator is Lenore Bontigao, and she is based in New Jersey, and she is amazing, not just as an illustrator, but somebody to work with. And she's actually um, also an author, and she
Mm,
just I think her first author book came out
yeah.
this year. Do
Oh,
you
just
you
this
know
year.
her? Was it this year in
I
October? I think her first book
I
came
think
out.
so. Yeah, yeah.
So she's so-called traditionally published now, and
Yay.
you should
That's cool.
follow her. She is amazing, and she has like, I think, 3 other books that are coming down in the next
Mm,
year or so. I mean, she's on fire. She's amazing.
yeah.
So I wish
Maybe.
I knew. I mean, you just, I get, you could look her up. She has an
Yeah.
Instagram account.
I'll
Right.
add the links on the chat later and in the description later. So yeah, thanks for sharing about the artist. And you also work with other artists in Cebu, right? If I'm not mistaken, one of them is from
Yes,
Cebu.
yes. So for our third book that's coming out, Mungan and her
Yeah.
Lola, our the illustrators are they're like a husband and wife duo,
Mm-hmm.
and they're based in Cebu. They're called Happy Garaje. Yes, I'm thinking Happy Garaje, and they're so like, I don't know what the word is for um, the illustrations that they do. Kind of whimsical, but also like deep. I don't
Yeah.
know. Anyway,
Like
check them out.
yes. So I think I hopefully I spelled it right in the chat
Oh,
from
Happy
Cebu.
Garaje.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Where is it? Oh,
Uh,
yes. And then also, so I actually, that's why I'm saying I'm glad we're doing this too, because
mm.
I had just received an email from them the other
Oh, cool.
day saying they were apologizing that, they were kind of off
Yeah.
schedule because, they got hit. They're in Cebu. They got
Yeah,
hit.
yeah. Hopefully they're
Their
okay.
studio, yeah, their studio got destroyed.
Oh no.
And there, I know, I'm like, don't even worry about this, the
Yeah,
deadlines,
yeah.
like,
As long as you're safe, yeah.
prioritize. So anyway, I hope they're okay. And
Hmm.
but
Uh,
check out their
yeah.
work.
Happy Garahe from Cebu. And
Yes.
oh, someone's asking if these books are translated in Tagalog or English. From Nicolo Vergara.
Nicolo C.
That's a
Yes,
nice
I'm a
name.
C. I'm a C. Oo. Actually, yung pinaka first, si Mama Mama, it's trilingual. Yes, it's trilingual. It's
Like, yeah.
yeah. So it's actually translated on the actual pages Bisaya, Cebuano, because that's the language that I speak. And then and English. So if you were reading the book, you will see English on the top, and then Bisaya at the bottom.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then in the very end, we give the translations to Filipino Tagalog, for people who are interested in, yes, in the translation of the whole thing. And then the other one, we're kind of we're kind of playing around with the way we can do translations.
Mhm.
So in the Jack and Agu, it's in four four languages. So we also have the Bisaya Cebuano, we have English, but we also have Binukid, which is the indigenous language of Bukidnon, where I'm from. So I don't speak it, unfortunately, but this is kind of my way of,
Mhm.
like, bringing, tapping back into my roots, and hopefully also like just spreading the
Yeah.
culture and knowledge and appreciation of it. Yeah, there's Agu. And then at the very end, so what we did is that if you look at on the actual pages, you will see that we spot translated. So you could
Mhm.
see like simple
Like,
words, like
yeah,
say
like love.
mama or love.
This one
Yeah.
says
So for
love.
example, love, we say gugma, and then I think, what do we say? Pag-ibig or
Pag-ibig
mahal
and
first?
pag-ibig, yeah.
Pag-ibig,
And
pag-ibig, and then gugma,
mhm.
and then of course love, and then in the at the very end we do put out all of the translations, the full translations, for everybody who's interested in
Yeah, this is
actually
cool.
reading. Yes. So
So
the
they're
first
different
column,
colors.
I don't know what the first column is. First column is, what is it?
Binug,
Binukid,
yeah,
and then the second one is in Bisaya, I
Bisaya.
think, and then the third one is Filipino or
Mhm.
Tagalog.
Yeah,
And
cool.
then yeah, so it's all there if you were interested in reading it.
Yeah,
And
this
then
is really cool.
yeah, and then the last one, the Mungan one, I think,
Mhm.
Kirby, we're gonna use a different approach to this
Okay.
one. Instead of doing the spot translation, we're just gonna use it as like kind of like Taglish or Spanglish, where
Hmm.
it's just like one language but
Yeah.
mix and match of everything, right?
Oh
Like
wow.
it will be sort of like an approximation of somebody who speaks all four languages, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm. Yeah.
somebody who speaks Bisaya, Binukid, and English and Tagalog, how would they speak it if
Hmm.
it's like just interweaving?
And yeah,
So
yeah.
I know, I think it's kind of
It's more natural.
an experiment, right? Yeah, right. It's more natural. It kind of just like, this is how you would, ganito tayo mag-speak. I don't know, mag-converse. Pag, if we know how to use Tagalog and then Bisaya and,
Hmm.
and so anyway, that's kind of how we're experimenting with this third book.
Okay, so I'm excited
That was a
to
long answer to your question,
yeah.
Nicolo.
Yeah, that's cool. Excited to see the third book coming out soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thanks for helping too with your
Thanks.
video and um, all that.
Okay, there's a question from Key Gonzalez. What are deities that you think we somehow shared with our neighboring countries, like different versions of Kapwa Tikbalang? Do you know of any before I share what I know? Uh,
No, I actually don't.
okay, there's actually a lot. I'm not sure how to answer this question in a short answer because there's a lot that we share. It's fascinating when you go to or when you look at cultures in different parts of Southeast Asia. There's a lot of similarities, like the Manananggal is a good example where there's a lot of difference. So Manananggal is Tagalog, um,
Mm-hmm.
and Manananggal that we know today is just the half the body that comes out, or comes separates from the lower half the body.
Mm-hmm.
In Kapampangan we have Mangkukutud, and the Mangkukutud in Kapampangan only the head that comes out. And so apparently the Mangkukutud with the only the head that detaches, it's very similar to the one in Malaysia, Indonesia, and even in Thailand. So that's like something that we just don't know, that we have a lot that we share with the different neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, those are my examples. Hopefully that answered the question. Go ahead.
What is it called again? I've never heard of this, which is amazing.
So in Kapampangan, it's mangkukutud. Kutud is to sever, to cut.
Uh-huh.
In Malaysia, Indonesia, it's pinanggalan. In
Tinanggalan. Okay.
Yeah, and in Bali, it's leyak. I'm not
Mm.
sure how to pronounce the Thai one. I think it's kasu. I don't speak Thai, so but yeah, there's the different creatures that or yeah, the mythological creatures that we share.
And is it similar as far as
Mhm.
like their predilection for
Mhm.
um men? Not men.
uh, I'm not
um,
sure. I think that might be a Christian. When they try to spread Christianity in the Philippines, that might be a little bit of a distorted story. How because they did use, for those who do not know, when they introduced Christianity in the Philippines, they did use our own mythologies in the Philippines and kind of inverted the stories and made the good beings evil beings, so that our ancestors would flock to Christianity and abandon the other beliefs. So yeah, I'm not sure if that one is a direct result of colonialism, but yeah, good question. Good
no, yeah.
question
I
to
love,
ask.
yes. I love questions like that.
Cool. Uh, I'm trying to scroll through if there's a question that I missed, but feel free to share anything you want to share, Justine, Ate Justine, to our viewers. I mean, there's like a lot of things to share.
I know, right? I'm thinking like I'm I was trying to actually gather
Mm-hmm.
topics today because I'm doing uh,
Mm-hmm.
a talk, sort of a presentation slash conversation with Dr. Robin
Mm-hmm.
Rodriguez
Yeah.
for her Liberation School. Is that what it's
Oh yeah,
called?
yeah, yeah.
And so trying to figure out like what I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much.
Yeah.
Think like, and I think like a lot of it kind of what I personally want to talk about is like the 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 business of
Mm-hmm.
publishing and
Yeah.
how I don't let me
Mm-hmm.
rephrase that.
Right. Go ahead.
I guess if I want to put it in what people might say in a kind of like a jargony way is like I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the decolonization of
Mm-hmm.
publishing, um, because I feel that it is such an important work, but so undervalued by the community. Not
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
clearly
Yeah.
there are clearly we need these books, and clearly there's
Yeah.
a lot of support for it. Like every time I go out there and like raise funds for these books,
Mm-hmm.
I get the support that I need. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's not the kind of support that I'm thinking. I'm thinking more like just an overall kind of um
Mm-hmm.
I can't find another word for undervaluing, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Help me out here with a word, Kirby.
Um, how to explain this?
Maybe what I'm saying is there's not much support for it outside of our
Yeah,
community.
outside our immediate community, yes. So
Maybe
that's
that's what it
something.
is. Like
Hmm.
we understand it because our community needs it,
Yeah.
but like as an overall kind of endeavor, there's not
Hmm.
much support for it, and like even like there's kind of hypocrisy. Like we talk
Hmm.
about, oh, we need diversity and equity in books and
Yeah.
publishing and all that, and we've been talking about diversity and equity in books for like
For many
decades,
years,
right? Like in the
decades. Yes.
60s, this is the same thing, and the
Yeah.
numbers haven't really increased,
Haven't changed? Yes, that's true.
right? And here we are again saying the same thing,
Hmm.
and I'm always like, I don't know, man, I don't know. So anyway, so part of what I was really wanting to talk about was
Hmm.
like, this is an opportunity in a way, like small presses like ours or independent presses like ours, community-based uh, publishing is really like our communities.
Hmm.
Um, yes,
Yes. So
yes,
this is
Eve.
a comment from me. We're thinking how to spread knowledge without traditional publishing, the limits of traditional publishing.
Yeah, and the thing is that like, okay, now you're getting me started here, Kirby. So let me just get
Mm,
this one out because since I started this whole thing about traditional publishing, and like it's not just the publisher
mm,
presses, but it's like all the other stuff, all the other things that come with it, like like the other gatekeepers. Like for
yeah.
me, one of the things that I really got me frustrated with this Jack and Agu is that I sent it out to the Kirkus reviews
Mm,
for them to review it, because they have this whole thing about like, if you're a small press, if you're an independent press, one of the ways you can gain a foothold into the bookshops and
uh-huh.
all that is to get our reviews, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
right, like that's how you I don't have the backing of a big traditional publisher to vouch for how
It'd be
good
hard,
my
yeah.
work is. So then then we have the Kirkus reviews. So, I send them my hard-earned money. It's not even, I mean, it's
Yeah,
expensive.
it's
It's like
expensive. Yeah,
almost $400 to get a review. I was
yeah.
like, whatever, I'll do it. And they declined to review it because they said it's not in
Mm.
English.
Oh, wow.
And I
So
was like, what you talking
that's
about, people?
problematic.
Right? Like, what do you mean this is not in English? Read it. It
Yeah,
is in English. It just has translations to other
yeah.
languages. And so I offered to say, well, if you don't feel comfortable, because they said they can't vet the other languages
Mm.
because they don't speak it, whatever. I said, well,
Yeah.
I'll put you in touch with the Bukidnon Study Center, who,
Mm.
who speak this language, who is an institution on their own,
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
they can help.
With them. Yes. Still no, they won't do it.
Wow, that's so.
And then I said, well, can you just maybe review the English parts, the one that you
Mhm.
understand, right?
That's
Still a
so.
no. And
Mm.
so, I mean, they returned my money, so yay, that's good.
At least they
But
returned it.
I was like, you're crazy. Like, you talk about, being able to, you know, fight against diversity, and this is like
Mhm.
gatekeeping at its, finest, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm sour grapesing, whatever.
It's valid. Yeah.
But I guess my point was that it's not just the press itself, but it's
Mhm.
like all the other gatekeepers that are out there,
Yeah.
and like the whole process is just,
It's just too much sometimes.
it is. I don't know. Have you tried? I mean, have you tried going that route, Kirby?
No, I decided not to because I've heard a lot of these stories that it was difficult. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I know. And sometimes you can't help but like say
Mhm.
like, do I not just have the right talent, or right, am I not
Yeah.
just talented enough, or like,
Yeah.
like if I
Takes a lot
just
of
keep
toll. Yeah.
at this, I don't know. It's like, the advice is like, just keep at it, and one day you will get that. This is
Mhm.
like, you will get published. You will find an agent that will click with you, and
Yeah.
maybe that's true. And so maybe I'm just like, it's not being persistent enough.
Different.
In
Different
the meantime,
experiences for different people. Yeah.
what?
It's just a different experience for different people, I guess.
I think so. And
Yeah.
I think that for us, for like, for our community, the need is dire. Like, if I had
Mhm.
waited, if I'm going to wait until
Yeah.
I get traditionally published, my kids would be, if I even get to that
Older.
point, right? Like,
Yeah.
it would be 30 years old. I'd be like, I don't know how old I'd be by then.
Mhm.
And we just don't have the luxury of waiting, when
Mhm.
clearly we can do this on our own.
Yeah.
um, we just need to define
Mhm.
success for ourselves, and like
Yeah.
tap into our community who's
Yeah.
clearly there.
Yeah. The community is out there ready to support.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, man, you got me all ranting here. I
Thanks
thought
for
I'd get
sharing your
back
experience,
to
though. That's good to know for a lot of the viewers who are not aware of how hard it is to be published when it comes to our kind of stories or our people's stories. It's hard to publish here in the US. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah. And
it's
I
hard.
think actually, if I can just add one
Mhm.
more,
Go
it's
ahead.
not a rant, it's a positive note. I think that what I've really learned most, so far from this hustle, is feeling that the story, my story, which is by extension our community's stories, are not worth it, but like, are good stories. Like, I walked into it thinking like, oh, like, oh, this is just kind of my story, and I feel a little bit, like, it's just kind of a thing. It's small and like whatever, kind of, not necessarily like I'm ashamed of the story, but I'm like, it doesn't really apply to everybody, so I'll just keep it here. Parang ganon, parang, I don't know what the word is, but I think over the years I've just kind of
Yeah,
learned like, our stories do matter, and they
they matter.
matter
Yeah,
just as much as all the other stories out there, in the mainstream.
yeah,
Um, media.
yeah, it's hard sometimes when it's not that it's that um they don't matter. It's just that we don't know how the people outside our community is gonna respond in where we are. Yeah. So
Yeah,
thanks for
yeah,
sharing. Yeah. That's
yeah. Well, you probably are also doing that too because you've published now
mhm.
what? Aren't you working on a second one?
A third one.
A
Yeah.
third one.
Yeah.
How
So
did I
third
miss? Which one is
and
the second one? I have your
I did this one. I was gonna send you this one actually.
yes.
So I did this one over.
Oh,
So this is more of a. I did more of a easy to read book instead of like a very analytical, critical, academic
yes.
book. So this is more of a fun read on how um, the Tagalog and Kapampangan people, um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how they revolted in 1588. And yeah, there's a lot of things about the different social classes too in there, and I have some chibi art. Yeah, but yeah, and then there's a coloring book version of that book that I was gonna send to your kids.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll send it soon. Yeah, so
I love it. Wait, who did the illustration and the artwork?
the artist was actually is actually a subscriber of mine, a follower of mine, on YouTube and Facebook. When I found him, he did my the one you can see up here, the
Mm-hmm,
little mini me. So he did that first for me, and then I was like, oh, this is actually amazing. So I asked if he can do more, and then we just worked together in creating the other ones. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Who is that? Like a
Yeah.
collaboration between
Hmm.
you, like somebody who's subscribed to your
Yeah, yeah. So
thing.
yeah, yeah. So it's cool how it worked out.
I really think too, I have this
Yeah.
firm belief that children's stories are like one of the major ways that we
Hmm.
could affect change,
Yeah.
right? Like catching our not
Yeah.
catching our kids. It sounds so full of agenda, but like
Yeah.
like offering a different kind of
Uh-huh.
narrative.
Hmm.
Um, and I listen to the stuff that my kids are now
Hmm.
13 and 10, and they're like steep in the whole Marvel universe.
Yeah.
They know who's who and all that stuff, and I'm just like, man, like you don't know it, but it's all subconscious, and it's all like as a storytelling, but
Hmm.
like that's the values, the Marvel universe values have totally you know seeped into their
Yeah.
brains
Yeah.
now, right? Like it's all about war and
Yeah. That's true. Destruction. Like
destruction,
always
right?
something exploding.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I'm gonna read the comment from YouTube. Gwyneth said, "When it comes to publishing, one thing I've always wanted is more published books that are written in by and other indigenous writings. Hope those will be supported by more people." Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I hope to see more of those too. And yeah, it's hard to really publish these works, especially in the US. But hopefully we get more creative folks to produce more. And people think it's a competition. It's not.
Yeah.
The more of us out there, the better for our community, the better attention it's gonna get to from the mainstream publishers. Maybe they realize like, oh, there's a lot that they
Yeah.
can tap
Yeah.
into. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Kirby,
Hmm.
because since I started doing these books,
Yeah.
I've had not a lot, but s- enough people
Hmm.
asking me about whether
Hmm.
they could publish their books as well through the press,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, I feel like the help that I could do is not necessarily to publish
Hmm.
their books, because it is hard to publish,
Yeah.
right? Like one book, I will need to raise like
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
dollars, right? Like,
Hmm.
but if I could help people figure out how to do it themselves, like how to publish
Yeah.
these books, and just start out, start slow or start small, and kind of just gain the experience of publishing their own
Hmm.
things, I think that would be very
That'd be,
powerful.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have like you're saying, like all these little efforts, you put them all together, and it's like one
yeah.
giant thing.
That's
Um,
true. Mhm.
so I'm always encouraging people to find out if they can do it, because sometimes people just want to write the stories, like
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
like they just want to do the creative part, which not to say that
Hmm.
the rest of the work is not creative, but
Yeah,
right, like some people are like, I just want to write the story and be done. I don't want to deal with the marketing and the distribution and
yeah.
all that stuff, which is totally understandable because it's hard work. But anyway, there's something to that.
That's true. Yeah. For those who want to do similar things, we encourage you to do so. And it's just, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like struggles, but it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And for at the end of it, it's always like the money is like the big part of it, right?
Hmm.
Like it costs a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Also, it costs a lot if you have to pay more people. Like
yeah.
for me, because I don't illustrate, I have to find an
Hmm.
illustrator to help.
Yeah,
But there are, I mean, if you are one of those people who can write and then
hmm,
illustrate and know your art design
yeah,
work, that takes care of a lot of the overhead as far as the creative services fee,
yeah.
right? Um, so
I guess since we're talking about the process of writing a book and publishing a book about our people, our stories, I guess if you don't mind sharing, how long, on average, or how long does it take to write the book, and the whole process, just for those who are interested in in doing something similar, like for example, your first one,
So the
Mama.
first, yeah, that, well, the first one, because it was the first, took a long time
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
not only was I learning
the process and the
the
industry.
process, right, the craft,
Yeah.
the industry, and even really like the courage and
Hmm.
like the confidence
Hmm.
of being able to say, okay, I'm going to write this and
Yeah,
not feel like, shoot, I shouldn't do this. Like that was like a longest, I think out of everything, that was the hardest to get to a
yeah.
point where I feel like I'm going to do this. Like I trust in this
Hmm.
story, even though the story doesn't follow what a creative writing major might say it requires. It
Yeah,
doesn't have the beginning and then the
yeah.
conflict and then you resolve the conflict. It doesn't have there are also plenty of things that you could tell yourself to convince yourself that it's
Yeah.
not um, as good. But just to get to that part is key. And then so like if you want to look at the editing process, that could take, depending on you know how fast you work. I think for mine it averaged like 6 months or so
Mm-hmm.
going back and forth with the editor
The
once I
editor, yeah.
kind of have actually written the first draft.
Yeah,
And sometimes it takes a long time to get to that first draft.
yeah.
And then the work itself, as far as the illustration, probably I'd say between 6 months to a year.
Mm-mm. Oh wow.
But again, this was my first time.
Mm-hmm.
I went through like three illustrators to
Oh
finally get.
wow.
Yeah, because it was like I hired one and
Mm-hmm.
then like something happened and then I hired another one and then anyway, I learned from all those attempts. um, so I say for the first one it took me about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
um, Lots of lessons. And then the second one, probably I'd say like, that probably took about a year.
Mm, okay.
And then this third one it probably will be about less than a
Listen.
year, a little more. Yeah, because, like we sort of know what we need to do. Like even just figuring out like, oh, how do I get the Library of Congress
Mm-hmm.
in this book? Like
Yeah.
it takes a while, right? Or like,
Mhm.
how do I even do the ISBN numbers? Like
Yeah,
all
and
these
it's a
little
lot of like
things,
tedious work that
right?
people
And
don't
and
see
then
behind the scenes.
and then you have to rely on other people's time and schedule
Mhm.
to do all that stuff. And then things happen in your life,
Yeah,
like, and then you have a typhoon, right? Which
yeah.
knocks down your illustration studio. And
Hmm. It it's a lot.
yeah. Anyway, but it's a very rewarding
Mhm.
endeavor. If anybody of you watching out there is feeling like they might want to um,
Do
try
something.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. I totally encourage it, and I'm happy if anybody wants to reach out and ask about process
Mhm.
questions and all that. So
Thank you. Thanks for
yeah.
sharing your experience. It's a lot of work, that a lot of lessons that we can learn from your experience too.
And you
Thanks.
know what's so crazy though,
Mhm.
Kirby?
Yeah.
I don't know how. I know it's like an hour and 15. So this is going to be my last thing if you choose.
Okay. Right.
It's kind of crazy to think that when I think about this work that I've done, I feel like
Hmm.
such a newbie, like, oh my God,
Mm.
I've only had 3 books and I've only been doing this for how many years, blah, blah, blah. But when I go out there, like, and then I get questions from people who want to do the same thing. I am reminded of how it felt like when I was
Mm-mm.
starting out, and there was really no one, like
Yeah.
no one, at least in our community, to ask questions from. And so, in a way, like I feel like
Yeah.
I'm the expert, which is so strange. But because we're lacking, at least at this point,
Hmm.
um, of people who are doing this, like the so-called mentors.
Yeah.
Um, I'm happy to share, but I don't want to be the only one out here doing this thing. So
Yes, we need more.
join everybody.
We need more children's book that
Yes,
shows our
yes.
people and our our kids where they can see themselves. So it's getting a little late. And if you want to share anything else before I ask my last question for Ate Justine, and if folks have questions too from the comment, we can probably ask a few more. Um, okay, I'll just ask my question for Ate Justine Villanueva. How does you practice? Oh wait, this is actually a comment or a question from my partner Yi. Earlier today, she wanted to ask how does she practice keeping culture alive, and who did you learn from?
Woo! That's a big one. Because there's many
Mm-hmm.
sources, right? Like
Yeah.
I think my kids, I learn a lot from
Mm.
them. And I always, when I think about how I got started in this path,
Mm.
it was because I became a
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
and that really jump started. Well, I shouldn't say it jump started. I think it like made it more clear that I needed to
Mm-hmm.
do this thing, right? So prior to having kids, I was in a way, here's the word again, decolonizing by
Mm-hmm.
virtue of
Yeah.
my efforts. And that was partly because, I came here as an immigrant and I had to like reset my
Yeah.
brain
Yeah.
in a different way of living because I'm now in a different
It's a different.
space,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so that process of, even though I didn't know it then, decolonizing intensified when I had my kids. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, it mattered more to me to know what my roots were, where
Mm-hmm.
my roots were, and
Yeah.
how then to pass on, my ginikanan, which is translated
Mm-hmm.
to where I'm from or parents, or like basically
Yeah.
your
Your
origin.
roots. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
so I learned a lot. I mean, I really did learn a lot from my kids, and just not I'm I'm not suggesting you have kids just to have it, but like just being around kids
Mhm.
and just seeing
It's
how they think and how they
yeah, it's
feel and
amazing.
how
Yeah,
they, right? It's like
yeah,
they really do, unless they've been like somehow coerced and
yeah.
changed already by the way we teach them. That's
Hmm.
another topic I don't want to get into. They really do like very so-called refreshing way of looking at things.
Yeah,
And if
so
we
they
just
have different
allow
perspective.
them,
It's more what do you call this? Um, like a fresh perspective.
right? And if we just allow them to have that instead of like do
Mhm.
this, do that, we might be at a different spot. We might,
Yeah,
get to a different spot in our lives. Who knows?
yeah.
But I also learn a lot from the Center for Babaylan Studies,
Yes.
Ate Lenny
Yeah.
Strobel, and not just from her, but like
Mhm. The whole
just
community.
yeah.
Mhm.
And they really shone light
Mhm.
on that path and like just the Babaylan tradition of like leaning towards
Mhm.
healing and
Yeah.
wholeness and how we kind of care and being in a relationship with each other. Like that is a big thing for me because
Yeah.
I had to relearn that as well. So, and then just, I was going to say the irony, but maybe
Mhm.
it's not the irony. Maybe this is where the path is going
Mhm.
because I am now more connected to my Bukidnon
Mhm.
family and friends and roots than I've ever been before. So I've been, I immigrated when I was
Yeah.
17, like a long, long, long time ago. And for a
Yeah.
long time, I didn't even, that was like, see you later, I'm gone, like, and I think part of that is back then in the 90s before the globalization of,
Mhm. Mhm.
when you leave your home, you kind of think that's it. You never go
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
We didn't go back and forth before. We kind of just thought this is it. And so, anyway, and so that was kind of a thing that happened.
Mhm.
And that's helped me figure out more of my culture,
Yeah.
the one
Reconnect.
like, and
Mhm.
my grandmother who was Bukidnon and
Yeah.
remembering how she was and all the
Mhm.
lessons that she was teaching that I didn't realize she was teaching.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
I think it did. It's a great answer to the question. Um, so I'll highlight some of the comments, but before I do that, I'll actually put your website on the screen. So that's where you can find more about Ate Justine and her amazing work, her books. Because somebody asked to where they can find your books and where they can order your books. So you can go to
Thank
the website.
you.
Yeah, Sawaga River Press. Sawaga River is where Ate Justine grew up, next to the river in Bukidnon, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right, 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 right.
Yeah, I'll highlight some of the comments before I let you go because it is getting super late and you're a mother.
Oh my gosh,
um,
it is 9 o'clock.
it is, yeah. It's
I
bedtime soon.
didn't realize it.
I'll highlight one from my partner Yi. Her comment was super proud of you, mostly you, and producing work of knowledge for so many people who are yearning for more information on Filipino history and culture. So, yes, thank you, Ate Justine, for opening doors to a lot of our kapwa in the US.
Yay. And thank you for this time too, Kirby.
Yeah, and here's another one from Naomi. One inspiration for I guess young aspiring writers and illustrators. Students' books are important and beautiful. Yay, you're an inspiration,
Yes,
Ate.
yes, yes. I never had them when I was growing up,
Mhm. It's
but
not too late.
making up
Now
for it.
yeah, now you're the inspiration for the younger generation.
Yeah.
So I guess one more comment from Gwyneth. Do you think a type of topics you cover in your books should be implemented in education in the Philippines too? Because I do. So that's from Gwyneth. So yes,
Yes, totally agree.
again, I one more pala from Gwyneth then. What Ate Justine felt is so relatable. I'm not even living in a foreign country, but it's so important for me to teach our true roots to the younger folks. In Gwyneth's case, the younger siblings, and Ate Justine's her children.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you, Annette.
Maraming salamat for everybody who asked question. And I'm gonna let Ate Justine go because it is pretty late.
Oh my gosh. I hope everybody, I don't know. I hope that we got something out of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Fun and inspiration and
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge. It is
yes.
very inspiring for a lot of us.
All right. Thank you. What do I
Salamat.
do? What do I do, Kirby? Do I
I
like?
guess I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
All
So
right.
maraming
Okay.
salamat.
Bye everyone. Maraming
Bye.
salamat. Salamat tungkay.
Thank
Daghang
you.
salamat.
Thank you, Ate Justine. Okay. So I'll take a quick break. I might still have, I guess, 30 minutes for me to stay on. But yes, so again, thank you everyone for joining us. And I'll give updates on the Typhoon Relief Fundraiser in a little bit after the break. So yes, be right back. Asa na yung break? Hello, welcome back to me. Hold on, I don't know what happened. Uh, so salamat again for everyone who's tuning in and who tuned in. We just ended our chat with Ate Justine Villanueva, author of this amazing children's book. Um, she wrote about her children and published here in the US, and it's really amazing how we can have these books available here in the US for our children to see themselves in children's books. It was a very inspiring chat about publishing and her experience as a publisher and author. Creator in the US. So thank you for the questions that came in earlier. We weren't able to go through all of the questions. Ate Justine is a mother, so it is late for her. So we had to let her rest, and maybe she'll come back in future live streams to talk more about other things that we can talk about. So yeah, so comment in in the comments below or wherever you're watching. Comment where you're watching from, and I'll read some shout outs while I go through some updates from our fundraiser. So as a national fundraiser update. Ayan. So today's live stream, as I mentioned, yung live stream natin today and yesterday and tomorrow and maybe Thursday too, and next week will be it's a what do you call this? It's a fundraiser, a live stream fundraiser for the communities affected by the typhoon in the Philippines through NAFCON Bayanihan Response for Typhoon Odette. And you can donate today at tinyurl.com/2021 typhoons. There's actually a QR code that I forgot to put on the screen, but maybe tomorrow I'll put the QR code so easier for other folks to donate. So yeah, you'll also see the link in the scrolly thing below 2021 typhoons, um, where to donate, and it's also linked in the video description below. Excuse me. But good news updates, Muna. Um, what do you call this? Looking at the updates from the website from NAFCON, NAFCON's live count of the donations, we are now when we started the live stream today, it was $5,348, but now we are at $5,748. So maraming salamat sa lahat ng nag-donate to everybody who donated who donated to our fundraiser for the communities affected by the typhoon in the Visayas. Maraming salamat. Can you hear me? Because I can see my mic was off. But yeah. So again, maraming salamat. So within the last hour, we were able to raise for NAFCON $400. So we beat yesterday's record of $308. Yay! So again, maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga nag-donate. And I'll what do you call this? I'll answer some of the questions in the chat in a little bit. Yan. Yan. Maraming salamat. Okay, let me scroll through. There's a lot of good questions that we missed earlier that I'm still going to try to answer before we go tonight. Oh, so shout out Muna. Gwyneth from watching from Cavite while eating lunch. Hello. Thank you. Yes, we raised a lot of donations. We have Liam from Minalin, Pampanga. A lot of my roots are actually from Minalin, the Tayag clan of Pampanga, or my branch of the Tayag clan were the Dátûs in Minalin back in the day, in what we used to call Tabungaw. Yeah, so shout out sa mga taga Minalin, Caballen-Táyag Minalin. Shout out kaya kayo, mayapit ka panapon. And we have Joseph from Tondo in Manila. Thank you for joining. Tondo is the subject of my book, in this book. So, shout out sa mga kababayan natin sa Tondo. Thank you for joining. Yeah, so I guess we're gonna we can still chat for a little bit longer. I have maybe 25 more minutes till I end this live stream, and then we'll come back tomorrow. So for those who, because a lot of the questions actually today were about Bakunawa. So a lot of the questions on the YouTube comments, on the Facebook comments that were coming in, they were asking about Bakunawa, and that's actually the reason why I did not ask Ate Justine earlier is that Bakunawa is the subject for tomorrow's live stream with Ate Ligaya. So we'll learn more about Bakunawa and other related mythologies tomorrow. So stay tuned again tomorrow. But tomorrow will be a little bit early. Instead of 8 p.m. Pacific or 12 noon in the Philippines, it will be 6 p.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. sa Pilipinas with Ate Ligaya. Because Ate Ligaya is based in New York, so it's a little bit later for her. So if we go a little bit later, it will be too late for her. Yeah. So again, thank you. Zujay is watching from Davao City, Mindanao. Yay! So Ate Justine, our guest earlier, is actually from Bukidnon, Mindanao. So we have kababayans everywhere. Let me just drink water really quick. And yeah, there was a question earlier of the different what do you call this? Water deities or water gods and goddesses in the Philippines. I forgot who asked it, but I missed it now. But yeah, so that was our topic for today. But we ended up talking about a lot about publishing, the experiences of Ate Justine about publishing, and it is very inspiring how she worked hard to publish children's book about our people here in the USA, which is it's really hard to publish a book in the US when it comes to subjects that are not mainstream or that are brown kids. And she talked about how she was rejected by different mainstream publishers because the book itself is um, in English and in Filipino and Bisaya. So for her, it is heartbreaking to hear that, but she persevered, and now she has her third book coming out. So maraming salamat again to Ate Justine. Maybe we'll have her back once in the coming upcoming other live stream. But again, the question earlier about the different water deities in the Philippines, there's a lot. There was a question too if the different Filipino people shared the same gods and goddesses, the Diwatas, or same mythologies. The short answer is yes and no. So some of the mythologies are the same, but some are actually different. So when we look at the Philippines, kung titignan natin ng Pilipinas, we shouldn't look at it as one big, thing that everything is the same. So it's different traditions, different deities, different gods and goddesses that our ancestors had. So, for example, the Tagalog gods are different from those in Kapampangan, even though they're next to each other, and it's also different from those in Bicol and Bisaya, although some of them are the same and similar. For example, Bakunawa is found in the Visayan mythology and also in the Bicolano mythology. So, um, yeah. Oh, I found the question. So, sino-sino ang mga diwatang tubig sa Luzon o Visayas? So, who are the diwatas, the deities of water in Luzon and Visayas? So, I'll try to name a few that I can remember right now. There's Amansinaya, of course, the goddess in Tagalog of for fishermen. That's from Tagalog culture. Amansinaya. There is in Kapampangan we have Lakandúlâ. Lakandúlâ is literally it means the god of water. Lakan is God or Lord, and then deified king, or in this case, a god. So Lakandúlâ literally means the god of water, and the when fun fact pala, in Lakandúlâ, the Kamampangan god of water is actually a mudfish. So it's interesting how our ancestors saw their different deities in different forms. So for example, again, Lakandúlâ was a mudfish or bulig in Kapampangan. So ano ba yung mudfish sa Tagalog? I think I forgot. Mudfish. Let's look it up. Kasi in Kapampangan, it's bulig. And it's not hito because hito is catfish. Dalag. There we go. So in Tagalog, it's dalag. So Lakandúlâ, the god of water in Kapampangan culture, is a mudfish or a type of dragon that looks like a mudfish. So it's kind of a interesting fusion. And we'll learn more about dragons tomorrow, especially Bakunawa and other moon-eating dragons in Philippine mythologies, with Ate Ligaya from New York. Yeah, so dalag is the Tagalog word for mudfish or bulig in Kapampangan. Um, da. Ano ba yun I'm still trying to think what other water deities that I can think of. In Mangyan, in Hanunoa, Mangyan, they have Apu Danum or Apu Dandum, that deity in the river. If I'm not mistaken, there's Magwayan in the Visayan mythology, who is the goddess of the winds and the sea. Um, so it's actually a major god or goddess in the Visayan mythology, si Magwayan. Maybe we can ask Ate Ligaya more tomorrow because she knows more about Visayan mythologies. too. So we can definitely ask her tomorrow about Maguayan and other mythological deities in our culture. Um, yeah, ano pa ba? I'm still thinking. There's a lot. Even again, I mentioned to Ate Justine Kingdom when we were talking about the different creatures in Kapampangan culture, or the islands of the Philippines, or Pampanga or Luzon, are actually found in the mythology is the back of a giant crocodile-like dragon that is known as Indong Timbuan or Dapu. So that's another creature in or mythological giant being in Kapampangan culture that I can think of right now. Marami. Actually, a lot of Filipinos are familiar with the shokoy. Shokoy are these scary. Now we think of them as the scary what do you call this? Scary beings that you know you should be careful of because they would capture you and bring you in the depths of the ocean and you can never come back. Um, but there's actually pre-colonial roots to the Shokoy, and I'll share some of what I know in Kapampangan mythology. So in Kapampangan mythology, a Shokoy is actually called a Suiki, and it is actually related to the Chinese water demon. So it's like a mermaid-like spirit that is instead of being feared by our ancestors, um, what do you call this? Um, Suiki or Shokoy were actually back then before colonialism were the spirits that can ward off diseases who live in the water. So they're not evil spirits back then. They're actually a mermaid-like spirit that could ward off diseases. So a lot of our ancestors, when they needed to cure their disease, they actually asked the help and prayed to the Suiki in Kapampangan or Shokoy in Tagalog. Unfortunately, today Shokoy we see them as these evil monsters in the water. Yeah, I'm not sure what happens to the water, or I've never been dragged under the water by a Suiki or Shokoy, but yeah, a lot of them drown. A lot of them get lost in the world of the underworld in the water. um, yeah. So Oliver's asking too, is she? This is Maguayan. Is she also the god of death and the ruler of the Visayan underworld? And yes, from what I know, yes. And we can clarify more this with Ate Ligaya later. And we have a question from Nicolo Vergara. Ang salitang lakan po ba ay wika ay po ay sorry, let me backtrack. Ang salitang lakan po ay wikang ano po ba? So what language is the word lakan? So today, if we study the history of the word lakan, it is primarily used in Kapampangan and later on adopted in Tagalog. So in Kapampangan, lakan, it has roots from the Hindu Buddhist mixed with indigenous beliefs in Kapampangan mythology and society. But Lakan, if you've never seen my other video about Dátû, Lakan, and Rája, Lakan is in different contexts, it means different things. So in mythology, it means the gods and the goddesses, the dewatas, that our ancestors believed in, like Lakandanum, the god of water, Lakanilao, the god of brightness, Lakan, what do you call this? Lakandano, famine and hunger. There is Lakanapi, the god of fire. So there's different. Lakan is generic title for gods and goddesses. And then, in a political sense, in our pre-colonial society in Pampanga and Central Luzon, in actually not just Central Luzon. Kapampangan used to live not just Central Luzon all the way to Southern Luzon back then. But in pre-colonial society, Lakan is the title that the paramount ruler of Tondo uses. So the ruler of Tondo back then is known as Lakandúlâ. Lakandúlâ literally means now we translate it as the Lord of the Palace, but it literally means the God of the Palace. So Lakandúlâ is a title; it's not a name. So that's. I hope I answered a little bit of the question about the word Lakan. It is very interesting word because we don't see it in other parts of the Philippines or other parts of Southeast Asia, even though it's related to some other words. But yeah, so Lakan means a lot of things, or like mostly deified diwatas and devarajas or god kings, god queens in pre-colonial societies. Ano pa bang? Gwyneth shared when it comes to water beings, one thing she can remember or they can remember reading about is Magindara or the scary water monster in Bicol, I think. Yeah. So I've heard of that too. Maybe we can ask Ate Ligaya tomorrow. Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with Bicolano mythology, but I hope I am. Or I hope to learn more. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Ano pa ba ang ating maraming ako na-miss na questions kanina. But shout out muna kay Ivan Montero from Porac, Pampanga. Shout out from Porac. Maya Payaldo, kaya ka. Um, yeah, so if you want to shout out, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And we had people earlier from Middle East, from Malaysia, from the Middle East, in Qatar, in the UK. So let us know in the comments. Um, sorry, I'm trying to catch up with, with all the comments that I missed earlier. Ang dami pala. Nicolo commented, I'm finding all these Philippine stories to make my own, inspired by those and promote our nearly forgotten and totally forgotten cultures, traditions, legends, folk tales, and our handicraft. So thank you. Hope I wish you the best of luck in your projects. So yeah, we need more creators that takes inspiration from our own culture, because most of the time, a lot of the things we see in the mainstream are inspired by other countries, by European mythology, Greek mythology, but we have our very rich mythology and culture in the Philippines. Yeah, cool. So from Imos Cavite, si ang liit, hindi ko mabasa ng maayos. Is it Dave Isalat? Shout out from Cavite. Masyadong maliit yung font, hindi ko mabasa yung baybayin. I'm not sure which the marks are. But yeah, thank you. Shout out din kay Suzaku Segura. Thank you, Kuya Kirby, for informing us of our rich history. Thank you, Suzaku. Child of the Sun returning from Toronto. Hello. Wow, you're still awake. It's late in Toronto. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, and see Karen from San Jose, California, just 2 hours away from me. Hello, Karen. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Um, yeah. So for those who are joining us, again, we're doing this live stream to fundraise then for our folks who are affected by the typhoon in the Philippines through NAFCON's pioneering hand response to Typhoon Odette. And you can see the link right scrolling right here. tinyurl.com 2021 typhoons. Yeah. Oh, another one from San Jose. See Mr. E from San Jose. Shout out from San Jose. Neighbors with Karen. Shout out then kay um, Katha SJ from Dubai, UAE. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Yay. Um, yeah. What is it? Tama. Dave. Yes, Dave po from Imos Cavite. Yes. Thank you, Dave, for joining us. Thank you for clarifying how to say your name. Salamat. I have a few more minutes, so go ahead if you want to ask any more last minute questions. Reminder, tomorrow's topic is about Bakunawa and other dragon-like creatures in Philippine mythology with Ate Ligaya, um, from who is also known as the Pinay writer. So back in the day, if you're familiar with Tumblr, there's this famous Tumblr blog called Pinoy Culture, and that shares a lot of pre-colonial traditions, history, and oral traditions and mythologies from the Philippines. And it was actually Ate Ligaya's blog. So if you're familiar with Tumblr back then, Pinoy Culture, it's Ate Ligaya. So that was a very famous Tumblr blog back in the day. So Kiko Cruz is asking, why is it that we have limited references for our local mythologies? Thank you. I find your channel very informative. Keep it up. Thank you, Kiko, for asking that. It's hard because a lot of our traditions, a lot of our mythologies have been passed down orally by our ancestors. So a lot of this were passed down through storytelling, through different oral traditions, but and what do you call this? So our traditions for over 1,000 years have been very based in oral traditions. So sadly, a lot of it were not recorded, especially during Spanish colonialism. When they recorded our stories, they kind of distorted a lot of it to fit the narrative of how they conquered the Philippines, or what they wanted the Philippines to be as a Spanish colony. So a lot of the stories were kind of distorted. So a lot of the stories did survive through oral traditions, but yeah, so that hopefully that answered the question. There's no short answer to the question, but there is limited available references. But actually, um, I'm not. What I'm trying also to say is that it's not just, or I'm not saying that kulang or konti lang or just very little resources that is out there. There's actually a lot of resources. It's just not a lot of them are not accessible. There's a lot of resources that are still around, but they're not accessible to people. So right now, people would just go on Google, look at things up on the internet, but sometimes the vast majority of resources about our culture and traditions are not found online. So you have to really do your field work and ask the elders in the Philippines. So a question from Nicolo Vergara. Where can I find libraries that's full of Philippine literature? One of them is the Philippine National Library that is located in Manila in the Rizal Park. There's if you're from the US, UC Berkeley has a huge collection of Philippine books and topics, and same with UC Davis, where I went to college. So there's a lot of different libraries that actually have a lot of collection about the Philippines. It's just that some of it are not accessible to people, like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, there's a lot of libraries in the Philippines. If you want to learn more about Kapampangan culture and tradition, visit Sinupan Singsing in Angeles City. They have their own library that talks about the deals or focuses on Kapampangan society, culture, and traditions. Can you hear me now? Not unplug your mic. Cool. So, Mr. E, I also graduated from UC Davis before I went to San Jose State. Yay! Fellow Aggies. Um, Jeff Palmer, Texas is sharing, I guess. AUF, if I'm not mistaken, you're talking about Angeles University Foundation in Angeles. Also has a collection of Kapampangan books. Um, yeah, so there's also the Center for Babaylan Studies in the US. If you want to learn more about healing practices and spirituality of our ancestors that are still practiced today, Center for Babaylan Studies in the Bay Area in California also has a lot of resources. Ano pa ba? Um, there's a lot of centers across the Philippines. There's a center for Kapampangan Studies in Holy Angel University. There's a center for Pangasinan Studies, if I'm not mistaken, in Pangasinan. Um, um, yeah, so there's a lot of different centers and libraries across the Philippines um, for example, there's the Cebuano Study Center then in the University of San Carlos in Cebu that really focuses on the Visayan culture, society, history, and traditions. Yeah. Olivera or Marco Angelo Olivera is asking, Kirby, are you going to continue making your Treasure reviews? Yes. So I wasn't able to finish my Treasure breakdown and reviews, but I'm planning on continuing it next year. Yes. Joshua is asking, do you have or plan to do a video on Philippine marriage traditions throughout the years? That's a research that I'm still doing. So once I feel confident enough to share more of what I know, then I'll probably for sure make a video or plan on making a video on the different marriage traditions because it's again the Philippines is very diverse, so it's like different traditions per part of different ethnicities in the Philippines. So I am still digging deeper, but yeah, hopefully I get to do that sooner than later. Thanks for the question. Question from Gabriel Pijo. Are you in the US right now? Kuya, yes, I'm in Sacramento, California, the capital city of California. I used to live in Davis, just not across the street, but 30 minutes away. Yeah, yes, Sacktown. Oh no, I only have 5 minutes left. But yeah, so feel free to comment any more questions you have. I'm just sort of trying to catch up with all the comments from earlier that I missed. And again, I'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific, which is 10 a.m. in the Philippines. We'll talk about a lot of the different not water, dragon-like creatures in the Philippines. And actually, I'm gonna share with you, kanina. I forgot to share, but from Ate Justine's book, our guest kanina, one of my favorite pages in her book is this illustration of a Bakunawa, um, imagined by her son in the story, or he's playing, being imaginative, and he imagines Bakunawa being in the bathtub. So that's a Bakunawa from her book. Um, yeah, so yeah. So tomorrow we'll be talking about Bakunawa. There's a lot of questions earlier about Bakunawa and other moon-eating creatures or beings, mythological beings, in Philippine mythology and mythologies, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow with Ate Ligaya. And I'll share more about the Kapampangan ones. There's a lot. There's actually a lot of Kapampangan dragon-like creatures in Kapampangan mythology. So I'll share that too. There's actually other more in the other parts of the Philippines. Sorry, I'm still trying to get used to the camera right here and looking at the camera. So shout out Kai. Oh wait, that's the wrong comment. I from Saudi Arabia. Kay AJ Perez. Pabati naman po watching from Saudi Arabia. Thank you for watching. And yes, Jeff Palmer from Texas. Yes, Bakunawa is trending thanks to the Miss Universe Philippines 2021 who used Bakunawa as her national costume in the competition. Yeah. Yes, so Shade Gray is looking forward for tomorrow's stream. Yes, I am also excited to learn more from Ate Ligaya tomorrow. So Karen is also from Balibago in Angeles City. I grew up in Balibago. So yes, hello Karen. I didn't know you're from Angeles too. Any good book recommendation I can buy for my kid about Filipino mythology? Um, in the US, you should check out Archipelago Bookstore in San Francisco. They have a huge collection, a big collection of different books for children in that that is about our people. So check out Archipelago Bookstore too, or in if you're in San Jose, Ugat Clothing. They have I'm not sure what they have right now, but they also have a collection of books about Filipinos and Filipino mythology. So check out Ugat Clothing in San Jose or Archipelago Bookstore in the Bay Area. Hopefully that answers your question. And hopefully in the future, I also get to write more of my own books about different mythologies in the Philippines. Thank you, Kanan. Dakala salamat. Gabriel Gabriel Piho, thank you for sharing the Philippine culture and mythology through YouTube. Love your videos. Keep up the good work. Thank you, then. Thank you for supporting. I appreciate the support. This is why I do my videos to spread knowledge and understanding about our own roots. Maraming salamat. Oh no, what did I click? Uh, oh, hala, malapit na palang matapos ang aking live stream. Maraming salamat again for everyone for joining our live stream tonight. And we'll be back again tomorrow with Ate Ligaya to talk more about the Bakunawa, the dragons, and the different dragon-like creatures in the Philippine mythology. Because there's actually it's funny because a lot of Filipinos actually think that there's no dragons in Philippine mythology, but there's actually quite a lot. In Kapampangan mythology alone, where I grew up, I can count five from the top of my head, five different types of dragons. And then there's also, of course, the famous one, Bakunawa from the Visayas. So there is a lot of these dragons that we just don't know about, but we will learn more tomorrow with Ate Ligaya. Maraming salamat. Again, we were able to raise $400 today. Let me actually refresh the screen. $420. So, meron $20 na nadagdag. So, yeah, maraming salamat sa lahat nag-donate. Donate. Okay, cool. There's a comment from Stem Milk Kirby. I remember you from Skyscraper City Forum back then when you were still a teenager. Yes, I used to be active in a forum called Skyscraper City, which is a lot about urbanism and urban development and architecture. And I was very active in the Philippine section of Skyscraper City. Yeah, so that's a long time ago. That's more than 10 years since the last time I logged in. So maraming salamat for remembering. Um, Here's a book recommendation from Juan Antonio. If you're in the Philippines, you can get the book in Lazada called Mga Nilalang Nakagilas-Gilas, a collection of mythology from other parts of the Philippines. Yeah, so there's a lot of books then in the Philippines. So actually, if you're in the Philippines, you're luckier than us in the US because you have more access to these books and cheaper too, in different bookstores in the Philippines. Thank you for the suggestions. Um, Let me see if I can miss other questions that I want to answer tonight. And if not, we'll talk more tomorrow. Okay, so I guess that is it for us tonight for our live stream tonight. Thank you again for joining. Ulit, ang ating live stream this week and next week is a fundraiser for the survivors and the families affected by Typhoon Odette in the Visayas. And I'll just share a little bit of what we heard from our partners in the Philippines. So for those who do not know, I'm part of um, NAFCON USA, an umbrella or an alliance of different organizations and institutions in the U.S. Um, that addresses the concerns of the Filipinos in the U.S. and in the Philippines. The fundraiser is for Typhoon Odette, people who are affected by Typhoon Odette, and from what we heard from our partners in the Philippines was that a lot of the communities are still suffering because they don't have electricity, they still don't have signal, they still don't have fuel. So marami pa talagang nangangailangan ng tulong sa Pilipinas. So maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga tumulong sa atin at nag-donate. So thank you. Um, Thank you again. I hope this live stream was entertaining and educational to all of you who joined us. Um, yeah, and again, before we go, update for our live stream today. We were able to raise $420 on top of the $300 that we saw or that we raised last stream last night or yesterday in the Philippines. So yeah, maraming salamat ng malaking tulong ang every penny counts, like what we say. Every penny really counts in helping our kababayans in the Philippines. Yeah, so again, for those who want to donate, the donation link is tinyurl.com/2021 typhoons. It's not too late to donate. We're going to be doing the fundraiser even after this live stream. The link is still active, and you can still donate. Yeah, so maraming salamat po sa lahat ng sumali sa ating live stream today. And join us again tomorrow. I'll be talking. We'll be talking more about the different dragon-like creatures in the Philippines. Ay, mali yung na-click ko. But starting soon. Dapat pala salamat. Kasi salamat. Yeah, nagka-tech issues. Sorry, I had tech problems. But yeah, good night sa lahat ng mga nanood. See you again tomorrow. I think I'm lagging. Ayan, so that's this is what I wanted to show earlier, but it wasn't working. But yeah, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng sumali sa atin tonight for this live stream. And join us again tomorrow. Again, it's going to be a little bit earlier, so 6 p.m. in the Pacific or California time, and it will be 9 p.m. in New York and 10 a.m. in the Philippines. So see you tomorrow with Ate Ligaya. We'll talk more about the mythology of Bakunawa and other dragons in the Philippines. Salamat, everybody. And good night. Oh, by the way, before I forget, so for those who saw the interview with Ate Justine Kanina, if you're interested in supporting her books, again, the website is Sawaga River Press. Yeah. And if you're interested in supporting my books, it's kirbyavalyo.com. I may type it para makita niyo sa screen. Yeah. So for me, it's kirbyavalyo.com. And for Ate Justine's books, you can find it at Sawaga River Press. And yeah, that's it. That's my last pahabol na shoutout or pahabol na 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 comment. Yes. So good night. Magandang gabi sa lahat ng mga nanonood natin sa US at sa Pilipinas. Magandang araw, magandang hapon. Thank you again for joining us. Maraming salamat. See you all tomorrow.